Good evening, everyone. A very warm welcome to all our participants and our esteemed speakers joining us today for this exciting webinar on governance in the era of blockchain and AI. Saloni Kataria, and I have the privilege of being your moderator for today's session. We are living in a time where technology is reshaping and how we govern and interact with the world. AI is revolutionizing decision making, while blockchain offers a very transparency and a secure transaction. Today, we'll explore how these technologies are influencing the governance, the challenges they present, and the opportunities they create. This webinar is organized by our firm With Law. We are a full service law firm specializing in the comprehensive legal solution across various industries with a strong focus on emerging technologies like artificial intelligence, blockchain, and ESG. We also interpret and comment on various bylaws, including AI framework of UNESCO, various frameworks and guidelines of Financial Service Center Authority, accounting standards of international financial reporting for non-profit organizations, and many more. We help our clients navigate regulatory landscape, focusing on compliance, government affairs, and cross-border litigations. By aligning with global framework, we manage risk and contribute to the policy development and innovations. I would like to take a moment to introduce our supporting partner, Karnavati University and United World School of Law. Established in 2017 and known for its commitment to academic excellence and innovation, the United World School of Law offers diverse programs and prepares the next generation of legal professionals through dynamic interdisciplinary learning, equipping them to navigate the complexity of the evolving global landscape. Now, let's move on ahead, and it's my very pleasure to introduce our distinguished speakers who brings a wealth of knowledge and experience in their respective fields. Our first speaker, Dr. Harshal Oza, a very good evening to you, sir, is an expert in AI and robotics with a
Good evening.
strong
Yes.
background in mechatronics, control systems, and electronic from top institution in India and UK. He leads R&D at two companies and has published widely on AI-driven solutions in international journals. Today, he will share key insights into AI technology evolving and shaping industry standards. Our second speaker, Mr. Swar Kansagra, good evening to you, sir, and co-founder and head policy with he is the co-founder and head of policy and regulation at With Law, where he is a leading expert in artificial intelligence policies and regulatory strategies. With extensive experience in data management and compliance, Mr. Kansagra has successfully led initiatives aligned with India's Personal Data Protection Bill, as well as global standards like GDPR and CCPA. His work focuses on promoting responsible data governance, ensuring innovation thrives within the framework of ethical and regulatory compliances. Today, he will be sharing his insights on the regulation and governance of AI and blockchain technologies. Moving ahead, before we begin, I would like to extend a special thank you to all the participants who is joining us today. Your curiosity and enthusiasm makes this event truly valuable. We encourage you to engage actively throughout the sessions. Please feel free to share your thoughts and questions, and we'll address as many as possible during the Q&A. Additionally, I would also like to inform all our participants that the certificate of participation will be provided only to the registered attendees who stays at least for 50 minutes. These certificates will be available to the attendees till 25th of November. The issuance of certificate of participation is at the management's discretion. For further info, please log in it with the email used for webinar. You had used the email which you had used for registrations. Also, we have provided our WhatsApp group link in Q&A. You may see there. It is you could join the WhatsApp group for future event updates. Thank you once again for being here. And without further delay, let's begin our first session on the technical foundation of AI. Over to you, Dr. Oza.
Thank you, Saloni. for very kind information, and it's a pleasure to be here in this webinar. And welcome everyone this evening in this brief talk on AI and governance. Okay, so my intention and agenda is to cover briefly the foundations of AI and some very basic aspects of technology. Uh, with the very first question that I would like you all to ponder about is we say AI a lot these days. We try to use it a lot. I would like to start with uh, the question: what is artificial intelligence? Okay, what is AI? Now it's a very popular buzzword, but we have to remember there's a very important word artificial in it. Okay, so I would like to first spend a few moments of defining what is my definition, my opinion of what is AI. So what is artificial intelligence? To understand that, sometimes we can flip our mind and say what is real intelligence. Okay, and then we can understand what is artificial from it. So in my mind, if you think of a newborn baby or a child who is trying to learn through the initial years, and without using much words or only visual and sensory information, the child actually learns a lot of things. So learning new avenues, new understanding of the world, so that's real intelligence. You don't need anyone there. Well, you need people around the child, but ultimately the child is learning himself or herself. Okay. So it is safe to say that intelligence relates to finding a model of how things work, how something works. That something can be the whole world, people around you, with the kind of backgrounds most of the audience has, how a legal system works, for example. For people like me, it means how a robot works, how a machine works. So that is intelligence, figuring out how something works. Then if I can trivialize, AI is about automating the process of taking inputs and giving outputs. Now that's what we do. If we are supposed to give answer to questions, we get questions as inputs, and if we have learned something really with our real intelligence, we can answer. So AI really is, in my opinion, make computers behave like human beings. That's why it's called artificial, because it's a computer, but you want it to behave like a human being. That's the goal, at least um, first at a specific task, and then hopefully for all things useful to humanity. Sometimes we go off track and do something that's not so useful, maybe absurd. We'll talk about that in a minute. So AI really is, to make computers behave like human beings with intelligence. So an allied question is, do we need AI? Okay. So before we embark on how to regulate AI and why do we need regulation, maybe we need to understand why at all we ended up having AI. So this question is no more irrelevant or different than asking, do we need ATMs when checks and demand drafts were doing fine, maybe 15 years ago, 20 years ago? So do we need ATMs? Some nowadays, perhaps we are not even using the ATM machines. We are using online payment systems. Do we need online payment systems? Well, yes and no, but we choose to use them. Same thing goes for AI. Do we need motorized vehicles when a bullock cart will do? Well, A to B, going from A to B, spend more time. Why not use a bullock cart? Maybe we have stopped even saying that word. We are using vehicles, buses, and all are very high-tech mechanical engineering machines, right? So why do we need that? Same goes for AI. We may not use it, but using it, if it is adding value, yes, we need it. So it depends on the use case, basically. And it's I think that it is tendency of and nature of humans to evolve and make life easier for themselves. That's where the technology comes in. And in terms of software, it has manifested lately as AI, computer thinking and giving output like human being. Thinking is a bit wrong here. I think computers cannot think right now. It appears like they are thinking, but it's not. So when you say that use of AI is justified? It is justified when you use it for increasing productivity, improving accuracy and consistency, assist human life. You can think here use cases like drug discovery, healthcare. Uh, you can think of it like assisting in research itself, assisting in new innovation. For example, new materials are synthesized by using AI. These are some good use cases where it is justified. Another related question, and now I'll talk a little bit about the downside of technology. Okay, and which is where regulation has already manifested. If you look at history of engineering and technology, so for example, while asking the question of, do we need AI? Can we ask the question, do we need a nuclear bomb? And it's a bit unsettling question. If you ask anyone, do we need a nuclear bomb? Well, how can you answer that? How do you think to answer that? Well, if you milden it down and say, do we need a nuclear power plant? Then you will be more comfortable in answering that question, isn't it? So we may need a nuclear plant if, let's say, a government decides that we will need clean form of energy. We'll somehow manage the output radioactive material later on and keep it safe and keep humans safe. Yes, a nuclear power station. A lot of countries are believing in nuclear power station. But what about the bomb? So eh, there is a downside of technology. So you have to regulate, and there are a lot of regulations when it comes to nuclear technology. Can the same happen with AI? Of course, it can happen. So you can have a scenario where AI goes rogue or it is misused, and then you will need regulation. So how do you answer this question? How do you, when it is not justified to use AI? Well, if you use it without discretion, okay? Discretion means in Gujarati or a Hindi language, you would say Vivek. Vivek means Vivek Buddhi. How do you have a discretion to decide when to use it? If you do not think about it before using it, you should first stop using it and then think about it without regard to safety of other human beings, with blind trust in technology, without scientific attitude, and with bias. If you should not use it with bias. Now, how do we define bias? Every one of us has bias of some kind. How do you minimize it? And believe it or not, bias is a term that is used mathematically in training of neural networks. And it's funny and ironic both that neural networks cannot be trained without biases. Okay, so it's a mathematical term, but interestingly, the tech guys have not taken it as a dictionary meaning. It's just a mathematical term, but it's called bias. So you cannot get rid of it by design. So if we have too much bias, you should apply some regulation. And I will leave it to Mr. Swar Kansagra to talk about it. But I'm more of an expert in training neural networks and in infiltrating some bias in it. Okay, you can say, but there are ways to minimize it, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. Okay, so that was when to use it and when not, or how not to use it. What are the next thing I would like to touch upon is what are the fundamentals of AI? Okay, are there any, or it is just random technology that no one knows about? Well, in my opinion, for this kind of webinar, I would like to say that there are courses of full length 6 months, 1 year, and there are degrees on it. But if I want to summarize, there are three pillars. One pillar is the domain knowledge in which you want to apply AI. The second pillar is relevant data. And third pillar of AI is computer algorithms. When you combine all three, you can have the chance of having good AI tech. Okay. And also the order of what I said is important. First, you need to have acquisition of domain knowledge. For me, it would be first principles of engineering, physics, and science. For a lot of you with legal background, maybe knowledge of legal system. And I'm not well versed with it, so you can think of what you are going through in your studies, for example, or your whatever you are practicing. If you're a practicing lawyer or any professional who is working in this area, data gathered without domain knowledge ends up in absurd and dangerous situations. And there's no point even talking about regulation if you don't follow this order. Smart data fitting algorithm is only as smart as the data. So if even if you have domain knowledge, but you gather wrong data, your algorithms are not going to give you good output. So that's another aspect. So this order is important. And fortunately or unfortunately, there is no shortcut to acquire domain knowledge. Surely these days you can expedite the process of learning something. You can ask chat gpt, about any subject. You can even program them to teach you. This is also possible. But in my opinion, the technology is not yet at a stage where it can lead you from zero to a professional level. And there's a magic number, if you've heard about it, 10,000 hour rule. You need to spend some time, even if ChatGPT is leading you or teaching you. Okay, so that acquisition of knowledge, unfortunately, no shortcut. Until computers become really intelligent, not artificially intelligent, as per my definition. You still have to have humans somewhere interacting with you. Data. Now, talking about data, what data should be there for AI to work properly? It should be relevant, adequate, suitably modified so that computers can understand, and of course, without bias, as I said. Is that possible? I'll leave the audience to think about it. And easiest way to think about bias is, if you're passionate about politics, passionate about religion, you will quickly understand what is bias. What is the first thing that comes to your mind? That's bias. Okay. How to become well versed with AI? Now that we have talked about these three pillars, domain knowledge, data, and computer algorithms, how do you become well versed? Well, um, you have to follow first principles. So first principles of AI, and if I very briefly talk about two main branches, there are two main branches. One is machine learning, and historically speaking, we are talking something like 1970s to right now. Is still going on, and the other one is generally speaking what people refer to as AI, where we talk of large language models and so on. So within machine learning, we have a model set of mathematical equations which is trained on a gathered data, the data that I just mentioned about. So historical data is gathered, curated, and used for the training of the model. And the hope is that the model will give reasonable outputs when given new inputs which were not there in the gathered data. So this is the idea of machine learning. And sometimes you have very highly accurate machine learning model which gives outputs nicely. Sometimes you do not. Second branch of machine learning, you can say, is deep learning. And you can think of speech recognition. Now, if you've used in your mobile speech recognition in Google or YouTube while searching for videos, you will know that this is a deep learning model working in the background. Now, think about what speech recognition is. I say something and the computer understands. What if computer understands the wrong thing and it acts wrongly? And this is where the regulation aspect comes into play. Okay, so everywhere when the computer falters due to wrong data, wrong domain knowledge, wrong algorithm, you have a possibility of it going wrong. Okay, so at every step, you can think of safeguarding. So speech recognition, nothing's much dangerous there, but again, think of nuclear power station, and you will understand that if something goes wrong there, what happens? So safeguarding, very important in AI. And the other major branch of AI is generative AI, which is more popular these days. Uh, there are a few technologies which are popular right now, LLMs. So large language models are popular. ChatGPT is an example. Everyone might have used it already. So what it does in a very simple form, it predicts the next word given some collection of words. Now, why is it important? Well, why is it popular? Think of reading a suspense novel, and if the last few paragraphs are hidden from you, you will not get the final clue, or it will not conclude for you in your mind. So just extrapolate that a little more. Every word that you're going to read in that novel, if that was being given to you as a predictive manner, then what you have is an LLM. And that's what they do, predict the next most likelihood most likely word that can come out given the input. So, uh, of course, they use very large set of data, and here there is a lot of debate going on whether it is intelligent or it is just good at certain skill that it was trained on. So the idea of AI is these days either you train a LLM or AI of some kind, machine learning of some kind in a particular skill. Okay, let's say the skill is to summarize a document. You have a 15-page document and you want to summarize it in one paragraph of 200 words. Then can you do it using AI? Well, that's a skill. Now, that doesn't mean that an AI that is trained in that particular skill will be good at another skill, speech recognition, for example. So you need to have various AI models which are good at various skills. Idea is if you combine all of them, they are saying it will behave like a human being, but well, it's yet to happen. So a classic example I would like to give here is, Deep Blue, the IBM computer back in the late 90s, actually defeated Gary Kasparov in chess. Okay, and he was number one chess grandmaster in the whole world. He was defeated. The trick was he did not know what Deep Blue has as a knowledge of chess, but Deep Blue knew his chess knowledge, his opponent's chess knowledge, whosoever won against him, that person's chess knowledge. And that's why it was able to be trained and then take decisions to defeat a superhuman, in fact, in chess. So this is an example of skill of playing a board game. That doesn't mean Deep Blue could answer questions on life, philosophy, and governance, for example. Okay, so this is the difference between skill and intelligence. Intelligence is difficult to achieve, and the current effort by technology people is to achieve more and more intelligent. Something which I defined in the beginning of the talk: a child learning without words or uh, training, learning himself or herself. Okay, so um, skill right now, a lot of LLMs that you see are based on certain skills. Of course, general AI, artificial general AI, AGI, is goal of many companies, including OpenAI, Google. People are trying for it, but that's where the debate of regulation comes into play. If, let's say, an AI is as good as a human being, what will happen? You know, if and worse still, if a computer is more intelligent than a human being, let's say you have a lot of robots which are more intelligent than human beings. Do you need to do any job then? All the robots will do your jobs. Then what do you live for? This is something known as a singularity in terms of technology. People, they are worried while developing the technology. They are also worried that this technology will surpass us, supersede us. So, and also nuclear bomb versus nuclear power station. They're they're feeling that they're building a nuclear power station, but they have a fear that somewhere a nuclear bomb will be created. So uh, this is the I would say a very brief sketch uh, of what AI is doing right now. I believe I would not go more on in the details of how a machine learning model is taught. Maybe can do it if there is interest. You can let the moderator know. But idea of this webinar is to share what technology is doing and where regulation is needed. I'll end with an example uh, so that Swar can take it further. These days AI is being used to create art, new art. So if you're having a personality and skill and passion for creating paintings and drawings, and you can do that with AI these days. Even music can be created. Let's say you created music using AI and you didn't know that AI actually used the data, music tracks by an artist who has already published or created the music himself or herself without using technology. Uh, and you publish this music or painting, whatever, in market, you get paid for it. And suddenly get to hear from the office of that artist that, this is a breach, this is stolen um, material because it looks very similar to mine. What do you do? Who do you blame? Do you blame AI or do you blame yourself? I'm not the expert on that. I can create and comment technology that does this. But it's better to have people who are not from tech to also say something about it, because if everything and everyone is one kind and one sector and one kind of mindset people, then they have a tendency to self they will not self-regulate. If they can self-regulate, well and good, but usually not. At this point I'd like to stop, and I'll give it to Swar to talk more about regulation when it comes to AI. Thanks for listening to me.
Thank you so much, Dr. Oza, for that insightful and thoughtful provoking session on the technical aspects of AI. It's fascinating to see how AI is shaping industry standards. Now, moving on to our second session, we will delve into regulation and governance of AI and blockchain. This session will explore the critical legal and the policy frameworks needed to manage these transformative technologies responsibly. Over to you, Mr. Sir Kansagra.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks a lot, Saloni, for the great introduction. And we are thankful for the participants to be here to hear us as in what we are going to discuss today. A very insightful knowledge regarding what is artificial intelligence by, Jane depicting what is artificial and what is intelligence in AI. Now, I'm going to touch upon the basic idea as in what is blockchain, and I will make sure that you understand how these two technologies work. Basically, Mr. Harshal is a technical guy who has an in-depth knowledge in how these technologies work. But considering the nature of the webinar, we will be talking about the governance and the frameworks that are being developed by various governments around this technologies, which is artificial intelligence and blockchain. We will also cover as in how these technologies are gelling with each other and why governance is very much important, though Mr. Harshal has already touched upon the importance of the rules and regulations, and that's where governance comes into picture. So, first of all, I would like to introduce as in what is blockchain. The name itself suggests it's a chain of blocks. Now, going deep into how the technology works, it's a decentralized technology where you are not required to have a regulator in between. Now, to make you understand as in how the blockchain works, I will give you an example of an banking transactions. Now, if I have to credit an amount of 5 rupees in the account of Mr. Herschel, then I have to go to and log in into my internet banking for so and so. For example, in our case, it's in State Bank of India, for example. Now I have to go to the bank and I have to make a request for credit, and the bank will approve or reject that transactions. And post that process, Mr. Herschel will be able to see the transactions. But in that scenario also, the transactions will be seen by Herschel in his respective accounts, net banking or whatever the bank he is using. Now, blockchain, in a way, is challenging this centralized technologies by decentralizing things. And that's why cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin is coming into picture. Now, why Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies are widely accepted in the world? Because they are decentralized. You do not need government authorities or institutions like bank to have a transaction eye on what you are doing. So probably that's also a positive side, and that's also a negative side. We will go deep into why those are a positive and why those are the negative. That being said, blockchain is something, it's a chain of block, it's a decentralized ledger technology where you create an information, a block of informations which is being approved by the creator and the user. Once both of them approves that, a block is being created, and that's how a blockchain technology works. Now we say what is the importance of governance in doing it? So whether it's in governance, whether it's in blockchain or an AI, we have the importance of data. Now, what is data? That's what Mr. Harshal has touched upon. Not going deep into the technicality of data, but whether it's in blockchain technology or AI, data is something which is required for the use of such technologies. Be it a financial transaction, the amount is data. Be it an AI, the information that you are seeking is in data. So around the globe, various governments have been thinking as in how to cope up with this developments in various technologies. Uh, First of all, let's talk about how this various natures of technology, blockchain technology, are being used in various companies. So, one of the example that I have given is the financial transactions. The second one is the supply chain tracking. So, various companies, the logistics company around the world, wants and transparency in their blockchain technology and their logistics chain. So what they are doing is they are tracking their goods by the help of blockchain technologies. Now, how that technology works, I think we need a more of a detailed session from Mr. Herschel, but just to have a gel of how blockchain works, this is what a blockchain does. Now, how is AI going to help in this thing? Now, when we talk about blockchain, it's something which is a block of information that you store. Blockchain is nowhere a kind of a generative. Blockchain does not generate any data. Whereas artificial intelligence, as Mr. Herschel said, is something which has something to do with the generation of the data which you are seeking from the model. So the my model I means large language models. So that's what the AI and blockchain differ in the case where blockchain is not generative, AI is generative. So now in both the cases, the governments are facing challenges in how to move forward and how to regularize these technologies. So going deep into it, there are different applications of blockchain. uh, if you talk about in public applications, yes, it's in Bitcoin or in Ethereum. When we talk about private blockchain applications, then we have Hyperledger accounts. Other option is RC Coda. So there are different tech companies using these blockchain technologies in various ways of communication, which are very confidential. The another part of it is also a consortium. So institutions are also using this blockchain technology to create and tech solutions. For an example, energy web foundations. So another example of blockchain is cryptocurrencies and the smart contracts that we use nowadays. Being in the law field, being lawyers, we were of the impression that once a litigant or a petitioner or the parties to the agreement signs the contract, only then the contract is valid. But then that definition stays. But the change is the process of verifying that contract has changed by the blockchain technology. So now you must have heard that we are using digital signatures, and blockchain technology is above that, where we are having in blocks created for the approval of that contracts. That's where smart contracts comes into picture. Even healthcare has some kind of an applications where this applications are being used. Some of the examples of companies using blockchain is one of them is Walmart. Walmart is using blockchain technology. IBM, Food Trust, then Chainlink, and so on. There are so many companies using these things. Uh, uh, Going deep into as in how is governance framing these policies and why how governments are tackling it. Let's understand what is first governance. Now, in order to create effective governance, we need to have a bias and fairness. What is bias? Mr. Herschel has already talked about. But then when any technology is coming into force and when we as an user are using that technology, we need to make sure that we are fully equipped with how to use that technology. Today, each and everyone, including me and Mr. Herschel, are using AI. Now, when we feed a data in AI, we should have a clarity whether we are authorized to do so. It's similar to whether representing your client. So I believe I believe I'm from a law background. So I will give an examples where probably a legal field can correlate. It's similar to representing the rights of a client in front of the court, but then you haven't clarity on what are the rights of your client. So that's what this governance is talking about. That first of all, you need to have a bias and fairness. The second one is inclusion and equity. So, I mean, so how these models are going to generate data and how this adoption is going to take place will depend on how these models are being integrated with various solutions provided in the market. The third one is the sustainable impacts. So we as an human beings have been always adopting the way we like. which is not the case now, because we need to stop for a moment and think as in how these things are going to affect our earth. So that's why sustainability aspect, uh, uh, the very importance of governance is divided into five steps. The first is the technological advancement, which I said. The second is the concept of governance, as in when a technology is being developed, how to use that technology and how that technology have an implications on the end service or a product that is being provided. The third one is the public interest. So whether we have this solutions which are in line with the social values, that's something which we need to consider. The fourth one is governance element. So apart from the concept of governance, we also need to understand what are the elements that define this governance, which can help us to preserve our public interests. And at the last, the societal values. To have a robust governance framework, we need to have this five pillars as in how this is going to affect the society. Now, I'm going to touch upon various live cases which are being generated by litigants or petitioners as of now. But coming to that, before I would like to just highlight the existing frameworks that also are there in the globe. For example, we have an European AI Act which talks about how a data should be fed in a large language model and how a companies should train that model. That is something which is being regulated by Europe. Recently, United Kingdom has also published an consultation paper regarding the working of this AI technology. I'm sure you can search on Google and you will get to know how this technology is being guided by various countries. This being said, we have also some kind of challenges when it comes to the adoption of these regulations. For an example, Meta, so the Llama model, AI model of Meta, attempted to train its AI model in European user data, but posed to do so because of GDPR non-compliance and EU AI Act. Another example is of Brazil Data Protection Authority, where even again the Meta's new privacy policy was not able to create the compliance with the Brazilian laws, which depicted that the model is being misused for the personal data for AI training of the citizens of the country. So these are some of the challenges that tech companies are facing as of now. How they should consider this process of data, and that's where I think the technology and the law comes into picture, and that's how we can have a societal impact is how this technology should grow in the countries. This being said, the challenges that we face is first of all is regulatory uncertainty. What are the uncertainties that we have because of this technologies? The second one is ethical issues. As I mentioned in the earlier explanation, people are not aware about how these technologies are being processed at the back of their mind. So probably a simple user who is not in a legal domain may use the technology for a day-to-day purpose. But then you also need to understand that the data that you feed, if it's an AI technology, but that data will be trained to improve the model. So recently there was a debate as in when we were using the chat GPT, it's when chat GPT 3 model, we had in 4.0, then we got O1 preview, and now we have another model coming up where they are facing challenge in terms of data. They do not have data because governments are not allowing to feed in this large language models to data. And if we do not allow these models to feed in the data, they cannot generate it. And so the generative nature of the artificial intelligence comes into picture only when there's insufficient data. And each and every new model or an upgraded model needs an upgraded data. And that's how the AI technology works. It needs a lot of data. And probably most of the experts as of now say that AI has already interpreted the existing data which they have in the world. So one of the challenges which these technologies are also facing is they have limitation of data. That being said, I will also talk about the Indian specific scenarios in terms of data. So, Niti Aayog, we already know, has proposed national blockchain strategy way back in 2018. So, our government is proactively thinking as in how this technologies should take part into day-to-day regulations and how this should guide the public convenience. Apart from that, Indian government is also thinking about how the startup ecosystem should be guided by AI laws, and that's why government is incentivizing AI based startups in terms of innovation in policies, and that's why we have Atal Innovation Mission. Compared to India, in terms of global frameworks, we have EU AI Act, as I mentioned. The second one is OECD AI principles. Now, this is something we need to understand. It talks about the fairness, accountability, and transparency of AI system. Now, OECD is an autonomous body which takes care of the process of data, and they have given a policy which clarifies as in how our data should be generated and how to use such models in day-to-day life. Now, talking about the challenges, there are some good cases also where governments are adopting blockchain. For example, recently there was a ruling in Dubai where the High Court of Dubai made the blockchain-based cryptocurrencies as in legal transactions to pay salary to the employees in the respective jurisdictions. So this is an advanced step by a government authority to accept the technologies. Another example is El Salvador also made Bitcoin as a legal tender for a contrasting example. So, talking about the contrast, even there are some class of people which talks about how blockchain or the AI can be used for the advancement of people. In India, Andhra Pradesh government has been focusing on the use of blockchain technologies to create the land records. So this is an advanced step that is being taken by our government. Also, we have our own artificial intelligence model, which is Ganga, and it was launched by the IIT Institute Gandhinagar. So these are some of the proactive steps taken by various governments around the globe, and also in terms of India as well. Now, that being said, making the scenario of how the challenges are there and what governments are doing in terms of the technologies, I would like to touch upon as in how a good framework or the governance should be there. There are four major parts that we need to understand when it comes to governance or drafting a governance of AI and blockchain. The first one is the governance itself, where you need to understand what kind of a governance you are going to develop and what solutions or the services are requiring that governance. The second part is mapping of that governance. So how we are going to map that governance? What are the authorities or what are the individuals coming into force? Or how this technology is going to take shape in the particular organizations? That's how a mapping of the governance comes into picture. The third one is measuring of that governance. How do you measure the mapping of the governance? So that's where a measure comes into picture. Once the frameworks are defined, the respective roles and the mapping is done, you measure the impact of such governance, and at the end, you manage the three aspects, that is governance, mapping, and measure. So you manage all the three aspects to make you understand as in how we should evolve and how the governance should go on. That's what a good governance framework should look upon. Presently, I would like to touch upon certain litigations that are going on around the globe. One of the litigations that are going on is in USA, where the case involved is the Meta's large language model, which was trained using Book 3 dataset, a collection that includes copyrighted books. So the plaintiff alleged that the Meta used these works without proper permission to develop its AI model. So this is something where we are also looking at the dark part of how the technologies are being developed, where the claims were direct the copyright infringement is the main claim. So people are now getting understanding as in how these technologies are being used. And probably companies are also missing in terms of when it comes to the ethical use of technologies. The second case is where a plaintiff who are authors who works were alleged used by OpenAI ChatGPT and was trained on their copyrighted works without consent. See, I told you as there is a limited data. Now, as we know, Digital Data Protection Act, DPDP Act, and GDPR and CCPA, you need consent of an individual, or in other words, you need the consent of the owner of the data to use that data in any kind of format. So for that particular system, this framework is very much important. So this is the second litigation that is going on. I'm taking examples of ongoing litigations only for better reference. Third is Concord Music Group has filed a lawsuit against Anthropic PBC. Now, Anthropic is one of the big, developing models, large language models backed by Amazon, claiming that Anthropic AI Cloud was trained using copyrighted song lyrics without authorization. So that's what people are looking at it. Uh, Not going more examples as I have limited time, but various developments are coming when it comes to the gel of frameworks and technologies, whether it is in AI, whether it is in blockchain. The importance of governance is something which we need to consider. And this is where we, as a legal fraternity, are very much important to frame the policies and regulations which are required to run this model. As being a tech guy from a tech background, Mr. Harshal will, of course, help you to understand how these technologies can be developed. But how the legal scenarios, how this development of technologies will provide solutions, and whether the generation of that services or the solutions are as per the norms is something which we need to consider. And that's how we as an individuals, as in legal fraternity, are required to understand the governance part. That being said, what should be done at the end of thing? The first part is we always need to consider the biased approach of each and everything, whether it's an AI use, whether it's in blockchain use, but how we are going to use that is something which we need to consider. Governance is something will play a main role in the evolution of AI and blockchain apart from the tech part. But being a lawyer, I feel governance is where lawyers has to play an important role, how we should evolve. That being said, I will end my session. Thank you. Thank you for listening me.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kansagra, for that enlightening session on the regulation and governance of AI and blockchain. Your insights into the legal and policy dimension of these technologies were truly valuable. And it's clear that navigating the regulatory landscape will be crucial as these technologies continue to evolve. Now let's move to our Q&A session. I would like if anyone have questions, they can put up their questions. There is a question. What are the main challenges in integrating effective governance within the realm of blockchain technology? It is, I think, for Mr. Swar. Shall I repeat the question?
No, that's fine. I have heard it. So when you talk about effective governance, there are four pillars, as I mentioned. Governance, you create a robust governance which are allowed by law. You understand the existing regulations. The second part is mapping of that governance, where you map the policies or the regulations created for that particular organization, and then you measure and manage such implications, which will help you to evolve your governance model from each and every time. I think that's how you can have an integrative and effective governance model for various tech solutions that you have.
Can I add something to this? The
Yes, yes,
technology side?
please.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, philosophically, the first and the biggest challenge, and of course, it's going to be always there, is to have the regulator at all, because the technology of blockchain, as for mentioned in his talk, that the intention of blockchain is to not have the mediator. But as I mentioned, the risk, positive and the negative side, some kind of regulation is needed. So in doing so, um, what do you do? That is the first philosophical challenge, that whether to have the regulation or not, and if yes, what kind of regulation. So that's the main challenge, I would say, technology side. I think you're on mute, Saloni.
Saloni, you're not audible. Yes.
Am I audible now?
Yes, yes,
Yes,
yes.
sir. The next question is, what are some of the most promising AI developments that have implication for governance?
I
So,
missed due to network problem. Can you repeat again?
Yes, the question is, what are some of the most promising AI developments that have implications for the governance?
Right.
Mr.
So
Harshal, you would like to take it?
yeah, I'll start. I think everything that has some sort of automation using AI will have governance implication. I mentioned one example of generating pictures and paintings and artifacts. Same goes with anything. For example, uh, computer science, they generate code using AI. Okay, so how does a computer generate how is it able to generate a code? Uh, well, from the data, and what was the data taken from? Not all open source. Some of it has some closed source elements. So now this is where the trouble starts. If there is something is closed source, some part of it is open source. Now, the code that was generated and given to you as a user, that does not have that demarcation. So this is where the regulation comes in. Okay, so there are many cases. Anything that you generate using AI will have implication of governance.
Would you like to add something to it, Mr. Swar?
He touched upon various important aspects of the question, but yeah, when it's pretty much difficult for governments to cope up with the development of the technology, and that's where I think one of the biggest challenges is where the governments are not able to cope up with the evolution of technology. Unfortunately, there's a process that we need to follow for a development of a regulation, and that's why we have these various frameworks, and that's why we as a lawyer has a good responsibility of creating this governance. So unless we have robust laws which guides this technology, yes, we need to have a robust governance, and that's why I think we will have to figure out how these challenges can be tackled.
Thank you so much. Let's move on with next question. The question we have, that how can policymakers balance the need for the regulation with the rapid pace of technological advancement in the blockchain?
I will take this. Yes, of course. So, uh, in such scenario, what you need to do is get updated as in what are the regular updates, what the governments around the globe are handling, and what are the kind of litigations that are being developed in various countries. So you need to understand the nature of litigations, and to understand such kind of litigations, you also supposed to understand how these technologies work. So in order to cope up with the advancement of technologies, you need to get updated as in how these technologies work. That's what I said in my explanation. If you see the evolution of the models, we have reached to O1 preview or 4.0 canvas. Initially, it was not something where we're thinking of and generating an image from AI, but we have reached at a level where AI is using technology to generate videos. It's using technology to generate data, generate anything that you want. So we have conquered creation of images, creation of videos, and that's how AI is doing it. So that's something where in order to cope up with the technological advancement, I think we need to also consider that we should be updated as in how this things should evolve. Saloni, you are not audible.
The next question we have, as a law student, to what extent should we learn about these technologies to contribute towards effective governance?
Uh, I will take this. As law students, you are supposed to have an understanding how, as in how the basic working of this technology works. And after that, you can think of how this technology can be helpful to the people. If you consider the evolution of law, law has been always been amending as per the requirements of the society. So being a law student, you are supposed to understand how these technologies are changing the lives of people. If there's something drafting of a petition, initially when we were in our days of juniorship, we didn't had this privilege of chat GPT. So we were manually drafting the petitions. Now, this chat GPT is generating the data required for drafting that petition. But as a law student, you also need to consider what solutions this technology are providing, whether that solutions are in line with the existing frameworks or not. That's something which you need to consider. And in order to understand their implications, you need to keep track on the technologies as well, and also the different rules and regulations coming up in the world to tackle the challenges that are being faced by the technologies.
Yeah. The next question we have for Mr. Harshal. The question is, what are the key considerations when implementing AI to ensure it aligns with governance objective and societal needs? I think both of you can answer the
Yeah, I can
same.
start, and I think Swar can add.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so good question actually. In technology world, this is called grounding or safeguarding. Okay, so grounding means there are two, three places where companies actually look at this AI safety. Now, if you Google AI safety, first thing will come up is Google's own AI safety. Okay, so it's worthwhile looking at this set of pages to get the answer of this question. Briefly, the data itself needs to be curated so that it is safe data. Okay, so now this is a big question. Not everyone has gotten their head around yet. As for mentioned, a lot of big companies are entangled and all that. But roughly speaking, if the data does not have unwanted elements, of course, the output will not have unwanted elements. Okay. Trouble starts when you automate the process of gathering data. For example, crawling the internet. Now, if you crawl the internet, there is a dark side of web as well that gets inputted into the model. So, how do you then do it manually? If you do manually, yes. So there is this problem. So gathering data safely is one. Second, after the output is generated, you have to make it pass through a layer, which is safety layer. Now, this is what all these companies are doing. There are a few good articles. I would suggest the person who asked the question to read. If you go to Anthropic, the company's name is Anthropic, and their uh, model is Cloud, I think. And if you look at some of their articles, they've done some good work to answer this question. How do you safeguard at the output before it is given to the user? Okay, so at the input data, the output, technically speaking, that should be checked. So this is one way of thinking about it. And who decides what is safe? That's very subjective. And I really don't have a clear answer. And you, as Swar said, you can have iterative process of having version one of regulation, then you be open-minded, you involve stakeholders, then you repeat and then revise. And easiest way, I think Swar would recommend this is if you look at archives of previous acts and then revision of those acts. This is how even human species learn. Okay, so have version one out and then update yourself, have version two out. I would say that that's the way to go about it.
Correct. So, connecting the dots that you have, uh, I think the data is very much important when it comes to the upgradation or the evolution of this technology. So, as rightly said, the data that is being generated, whether the reference of the data is something which is allowed by the government, and that's why I mentioned the litigations that are going on around the globe. Whether the data that was used to train that model, whether the model had the consent to train the model for that particular data. So that's something which we need to consider. And if the accuracy of the data was 100%, whether the generation of the data based on the training of the existing data is something which we are thinking of as a solution from the technology. This is something which we need to consider when we talk about governance. And I think I would like to quote one of the examples which happened related to this technology. One airlines was sued by a passenger because the airlines was delayed. Now, the policy of airlines mentioned that there is no refund in case of the scenario which the passenger was talking about. But when the passenger started chatting with the AI chatbot of that airlines in a website, the chatbot said that yes, you will get the refund. Now, this was a well-known case because this happened in the initial phases of the development of AI technologies, where the code ruled out that the chat GPT or the AI model which was used on the website was trained by the airlines itself. And therefore, the response of AI model trained by the airlines is something equivalent to the response of the airlines. And therefore, even though there was no policy which says that the passengers will get refund, because the chat bot said that the passengers will get refund, he was awarded the refund of that particular airfare. That's something I will conclude my answer with.
Great. Okay, moving on towards next question. The question is, what ethical and legal challenges appears when AI decision making is used within the legal system, and how should they be solved for a law intruder process for of fairness and responsibility?
Okay, so there's only one way of doing it. First of all, when we use AI models for any solutions in legal field, you need to have a little bit knowledge as in what you want. For an example, if I'm using model to draft an agreement, I'm telling an AI model to draft an agreement, say for an example, a service provider an agreement. Now, in order to draft a service provider agreement, I need to be able to understand as in what is the important part of service agreement. If I do not have a knowledge as in what is service agreement, I cannot 100% rely on the artificial intelligence model's answer, because the data by which the model is being trained is not something which may be traceable. So the answer or the response or the data that is being generated at the end of the answer, you need to have an understanding as in what you are expecting from that model. So to tackle that, you need to understand what magnitude of generation of data you want when you are using AI models. That's something is an answer to the first question. Second is, in order to control the intrusion of the hackers or whatever the persons, the governments are creating a frameworks. So the consultation paper, which is being organized or which is being published on the 6th of this month by UK government, talks about how AI models will work. So publics are invited to governments as in how this model should work, whether the consent should be taken before the generation of data, whether the consent should be taken after the generation of data, whether a person using the technology should be aware of the data, whether the person who is generating the data should have a knowledge about the generation of data. That's something which is being asked in the consultation paper. So in order to stop the technological evolution, as Mr. Herschel shared, that we have a concept or we have a model of nuclear bomb also, which is used for destructive things, and we have a concept of nuclear power plant as well. If you consider in both the scenarios, nuclear technology is being used to create a destruction in the first scenario and a creation in the second scenario. So in order to handle such challenges, various frameworks are being developed by government as in how to handle them. So to summarize my answer, there's no clear-cut guidelines as in how this technology should be bound and how to take control of it, as the previous question asked, because the process of evolving governance takes time, whereas the technology does not wait for such kind of a process.
Can I add a little bit?
Yes, yes, please.
So I do not want to sound as being an expert in legal, but there is a very good reference here by the person who asked the question. I like the question. There are two keywords: ethical and legal, and it is usual for people to mix the two. Okay, so what is ethical may not be legal, and
Correct.
what is not ethical, in some sense, can be legal.
True.
Okay, now this is where the problem arises for technology people. Well, my take is very simple. If you have first principles available, okay, first principles means agreed set of rules of how a system behaves. If you have them, there is this discrepancy does not arise. For example, I'll tell you maybe a trivial example. If we do not follow laws of motion given by Isaac Newton, you will get wrong prediction, and you will always be wrong in predicting the motion of a particle in an inertial frame. This is a rule. Now, if you do not follow that rule, it's your choice. You will end up in funny and dangerous situations. It is not so clear in all areas. First principles are not available. Now, when first principles are not available, you have a matter of opinion, matter of belief, matter of background, matter of your trajectory, what you've taken in life. That defines what you generate as data. Now, if that data is used in an AI, it might generate something which might sound completely ethical to you, but not ethical to others, while in their own regions of jurisdiction, both might be legal. So it's it, this is where I think what Swar touched upon. In the land of the law defines what is legal. So you have to follow that. All tech companies have to follow that. If you happen to not follow that, well, you will be regulated in some way, and uh, you may be legally doing it, but your audience may find it unethical. So it's when it comes to ethics, it's a little hazy picture, I would say. But when it comes to legality, well, you have the laws.
I would like to take this further as in what I believe is, Mr. Harshal, as in if something which is being given by a tech company is not ethical, say for an example, some or the other way in a long run, it will not be used in a society because we have our own frameworks as in what is ethics.
Yeah,
So
but that's
it may
social
sound as
agreement.
in
That's
yes,
more
a
social
social
agreement.
agreement, yes. So if you talk about ethics, we have our own standards.
Exactly.
So if the technology or the solutions are not going in line with what so-called standards of our society are, now as you mentioned that standards of society can be different from India or any other part of around the globe, but if that particular tech solution is not in line with what societal values are or in another way ethical values are, then that solutions will no more be accepted. So in a way, that solution will not be applicable in the market.
Agreed. Agreed. Just a funny example. Remember the recent election in USA. A lot of people were following. I was one of them. If you remember, Elon Musk was uh, promoting one party, and someone asked him on X, the Twitter, that who will be the next president, and funnily, the Twitter itself, which is promoted by Elon Musk, actually said Kamala Harris. So the data was showing that Democrats will win, although it is run, and it's a good example of open and fair because it is known that the promoter of the company is actually supporting Republican Party. XAI was giving an answer that its prediction is something else. Okay, so what is socially popular may not be the correct data or the actual outcome. But I agree with you. Ultimately, it evens out by the society.
True.
I think we'll now move forward with one last question for this session, and then we'll wrap our Q&A.
Good to see
Uh,
the interest, by the way. Good to see. Thanks. Thanks to all the
Yes,
participants.
yes. Audience are pretty much interested in what is governance and what are technological implications.
Definitely there. Okay, the question is, could you discuss how AI is being used to improve governance and compliance in real world scenarios?
Okay,
I think
so
Swar can take it. Yeah.
as of now, we have set of rules. When you talk about various technologies, various regulations that are being developed by various governments, one of the tools that are being deployed by tech companies right now is they are using AI, where the AI model or the large language model is fed upon data of regulations. Now, being an Indian citizen, you will think, as in, for an example, if I want to incorporate a company in Dubai. Now, till now, what we're thinking was that we need to consult an Dubai based consultant who knows how this potential company establishment market works. And then he will guide us as in how we should open a company in Dubai. With the help of the generative model of AI, what is being done is the solution that is available in the market is sitting in India in a fraction of seconds. You can have in clarity as in how a company should be developed or incorporated in other jurisdiction. So this is one of the small implications as in how, and yes, let me tell you, the answer that you will get will be more accurate because the model that is being used is specifically trained to provide services which you are looking for. And that's why we have different models which are built on Chat GPT. Now, Chat GPT is an ocean of data. But when you have a specific requirement, you need a specific training. So when, for example, if you find any solutions which talk about that this solution is giving you a petition drafting of a petition. So in that scenario, the model is of course based on one of the large language models, but that particular model where you're asking for some kind of a drafting of a petition is being trained on the laws of that particular country. So this is where I think the evolution of technology works. Correct me if I am wrong, Mr. Harshal.
No, perfectly articulate.
In terms of compliance, my the example that I give was something very relevant one. The way you are getting insights as in how companies should be formed. Similarly, you will also get an insights how compliance scenario will be once you incorporate the company. Or in another example, what compliance you will need after drafting a petition.
I think we have one more question, and I think we should take it.
Yeah,
Nothing
let's
will
take it.
harm
I think
taking
it's
a
for
one
Swar.
question. So the question is, can you mention some relevant cases in contemporary times related to governance and AI and their impact in changes in the legislation?
Okay, so if you know, the GDPR was in force, which talked about the data processing, data fiduciaries. Now, how to process that data? The GDPR model, which is an European law, talked about how the data should be processed. It's one consent-based law. When EU AI Act come into force, the concept of data changed because when GDPR was there was no generation of data. But when EU AI Act came, the market was generating data based on the existing data. So the new law, which was evolved as a societal need, was talking about as in when you are generating a data, how data should be trained and how you should gather that data. That's something which EU AI talked about. And as of now, the governments are also facing challenges in terms of after the evolution of this EU AI Act, we have also Digital Data Protection Act, DPDP Act, where we are talking about how this consent-based framework should work. Our government is actively looking for an AI Act, and we have an policy and regulations going on. But as of now, the framework that we have is EU AI Act and various other laws from other countries is also outdated because tech companies are finding new ways to generate data. Now, the consent-based framework, the ways how to define the consent to generate that data is where we as in governance are facing challenges. And that's, I think, that's where we need to evolve as in how this law should talk about the consent-based framework. I think I have touched upon both the aspects of the question.
Yes, you have. Okay, so as we wrap up today's webinar, I'd like to extend a heartfelt thank you to all our esteemed speakers, Dr. Harshal Oza and Mr. Swar Kansagra. Thank you for your
Thank you.
insights and sharing expertise and knowledge with us. Your insights have deepened our understanding of the challenges and opportunities in AI and blockchain, which will bring to the governance. A special thank you to all the attendees for your participation. We hope you found today's discussion informative and look forward to seeing you at our future events.